Imagine if we went back in time and gave an NFL team a cheat sheet for the draft, telling them exactly who the best players are in the position they are drafting for the first and second rounds, occasionally giving them a little nudge when it comes to free agency and who they shouldn't let go. What would those teams look like now if they were able to always play the draft perfectly? That's what I'm here to try and answer. Today we take a look at the Texans, a team that in the last 5 years, or the last 5 years we're looking at, have drafted a total of 2 offensive players in the first 2 rounds of the draft. And the theme tends to be when a team drafts so little in a certain position group or for an entire side of the field, you tend to see it on the field, and of course that has been a little bit of a theme for the Texans. Very strong on defense, offense a little bit more of a problem for them. However, let's just get on and build this team, and we start with a man whose first name I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce. Our left tackle is Dwan Brown. Then at left guard, in 2014 with the 33rd overall pick, the Texans selected Xavier Su'a-Filo, and now we basically have a choice of all 3 inside positions, although technically it's just 2. We have Spencer Long, who of course is now a center, Trey Turner at right guard, Gabe Jackson, who currently plays the right guard for the Raiders. However, Gabe Jackson also played left guard before that and probably would have been a better choice than Su'a-Filo. At center we have Greg Mance, right guard Jeff Allen, and Derek Newton finishes the line off for us at right tackle. Then we move on to the tight end position, where we have CJ Fedorowicz, a man we've been throwing on plenty of other teams that drafted tight ends the same year he came in. He was, however, just a 3rd round selection. Of course, makes our team here with the Texans, and let's move on to the wide receivers. And our first wide receiver finishes all of the draft picks on offense for this one. In 2013, with a 27th overall pick, the Texans selected DeAndre Hopkins, which of course was the correct pick, and we can finish off the wide receivers with 2 rookies from last year, Will Fuller and Braxton Miller. Then we move on to the fullback position, where we have Jay Prosh, and then at running back, we have Lamar Miller, and that is it. That is the Texans offense complete. The best team you can possibly build. Now, of course, Tom Savage there at quarterback, but this is what I would have liked to see happen. Of course, that's not something we're going to see happen now, but it would have been nice to see Tony Romo join a team like the Texans, or maybe more the Broncos, you know, a team that seems to be just one quarterback short of being complete. Although he does go join Jim Nantz in the announcer's booth at CBS, and to be fair, he was just one quarterback short as well, with Phil Simms next to him. But with all that said, we can move on to the defense. Of course, the Texans' strong point. They did, after all, lead the NFL last season in yards allowed. And we start at free safety, of course. Andre Hal is our man there. Then at strong safety in 2013, with the 57th pick in the draft, the Texans selected DJ Swearinger. And now you could have had TJ McDonald or JJ Wilcox. And although Swearinger left the Texans a few seasons ago now, we're going to have him here because they let Quinton Demps go anyway, so someone had to be brought back. Why not make it the draft pick DJ Swearinger? Then let's move on to the middle linebackers, because the outside linebackers get a little bit confusing. We start with Brian Cushing, and then in 2015 with the 43rd overall pick, the Texans selected Benardrick McKinney, and now some other guys available instead were Jordan Hicks, Quan Alexander. Now McKinney isn't necessarily an underrated player, he is a popular underrated player if you will. He did after all make 2nd team All-Pro this season, didn't go to the Pro Bowl though. Then at left outside linebacker in 2012, the only pick in the first 2 rounds, the 26th overall pick, the Texans selected Whitney Merciless at defensive end. Well, you know, defensive end, outside linebacker, they get kind of squished together in the draft. Now, the other person available in that position was Olivier Vernon, but Whitney Merciless was the correct pick. And again, like McKinney, a popular underrated player, not actually underrated, but still kind of a little bit. He too, exactly like McKinney, made 2nd team All-Pro, hasn't been to a Pro Bowl, but now we move on to the right outside linebacker position, which I'm sure is going to then create some intrigue here. In 2011, with the 42nd overall pick, the Texans selected Brooks Reed at defensive end, outside linebacker mishmash, and they could have taken Pernell McPhee instead. So those are our 4 linebackers, and we move on to the cornerbacks and let the mystery continue. It really isn't that much of a mystery. So for our cornerbacks, our number 1 cornerback in 2011, blah blah blah, it's Richard Sherman. But in all seriousness, in 2011 with the 60th overall pick, the Texans selected Brandon Harris at cornerback. Then our 2nd cornerback in 2015 with the 16th overall pick, the Texans selected Kevin Johnson at cornerback. And I'm not writing the guy off, but Marcus Peters probably definitely a better pick. And then for our 3rd cornerback, we have Jonathan Joseph, and of course Kareem Jackson also still around. AJ Boy, of course, left in free agency. Now we move on to the defensive line, and we can start to solve this mystery of why Pernell McPhee is our right outside linebacker at right end. In 2011, with the 11th overall pick, the Texans selected JJ Watt. Of course, the correct pick. Our nose tackle is going to be the big man himself, Big Vince. There he is in all his glory, and now at left end. And the reason I kind of did this was just to balance the team a little bit better. Of course, in a 3-4 front, we wouldn't have it looking like this. In 2014, with the first overall pick, the Texans selected Jadeveon Clowney at defensive end. He, of course, went to the Pro Bowl this year, was second team All-Pro, but I believe there is no way in the world you can even try and argue that Khalil Mack would not have been a better pick. For one, he's been fully available all 3 years he's been in the NFL. For two, he's still better than Jadeveon Clowney when Jadeveon Clowney is playing at All-Pro, Pro Bowl level. And if Jadeveon Clowney had half a sack less in his career, Khalil Mack would have 3 times as many sacks as him. And all of this isn't necessarily against Jadeveon Clowney. However, with the first overall pick, I think everyone can pretty much agree, unless you're in denial, you would rather have a Khalil Mack than a Jadeveon Clowney. So, of course, at the end, we always like to have a little question, and I guess the question is, and remember that Tom Savage is actually our starting quarterback here, because Tony Romo is no longer in the NFL, with Bill O'Brien having said, of course, everybody in the AFC is chasing the Patriots. Does this Texans team with these changes have what it takes to catch the Patriots? And in other words, can this team go all the way? Quarterback, of course, still looking a little soft, but I do hear Phil Simms is available.